Let me be direct with you from the outset, because what happened at 11:23 p.m. Theran time on May 14th, 2026 demands directness. Everyone is focused on the drones. Everyone is asking whether this was Israel, whether this was coordinated with Washington, whether Iran will retaliate. But that is not the real story. The real story is not the attack itself. The real story is what Iran used to stop it, and what that capability reveals about the balance of power in the Middle East. Right now, I am looking at a damage assessment report that has been circulating among Western defense analysts for the past 48 hours. And I need you to walk through it with me, because what it shows is not a missile defense system. It is not a traditional anti-aircraft battery. It is not the S-300 systems Russia delivered years ago. What it shows is a directed energy weapon system that became operational at 11:23 p.m. and destroyed 67 unmanned aerial vehicles in approximately 9 minutes. 67 drones, 9 minutes. And according to multiple Iranian military sources and confirmed by independent satellite analysis from the European Space Agency, not a single missile was fired. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly why this changes the calculus for any military operation against Iran, why the Pentagon has been privately alarmed about this capability since at least March of this year, and why what you are paying for defense stocks and energy futures is about to shift dramatically. This is geopolitical analysis that you are not getting from mainstream coverage. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is being actively studied by American military planners right now, today. Let's start with the geography and the technology, because understanding what Iran actually deployed requires understanding what directed energy weapons are and why they matter. A directed energy weapon, or DEW system, uses concentrated electromagnetic energy rather than kinetic projectiles. We are talking about high-energy lasers, high-powered microwave systems, or particle beam weapons. The United States has been developing these systems for decades. Israel has operational systems like Iron Beam. China has demonstrated a ship-mounted laser platforms, but until May 14th at 11:23 p.m., there was no confirmed combat use of a domestically produced Iranian DW system against a mass drone attack. The system Iran activated is reportedly called Shahabak, which translates roughly to piercing star. According to reporting by Iran's Tasnim news agency, and later confirmed by regional defense publications including Defense Security Asia and Middle East Eye, the system has been in development since 2019. It uses a 150-kilo solid-state laser array capable of targeting multiple drones simultaneously at ranges up to 4 kilometers. To put that in perspective, the U.S. Navy's ANS-EQ-3 laser weapon system, which has been operational since 2014, operates at 30 kilo. Israel's Iron Beam, still in testing, is estimated at 100 kilos. Iran is claiming 150 kilowatt operational capacity. Now, does that number matter? Yes, because the energy required to disable or destroy a target scales with range and atmospheric conditions. A 150 kilobeller system can engage multiple targets at tactically relevant ranges, even in less than ideal weather. That is not experimental. That is operational capability. And according to Iranian Defense Minister, Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Ashani, who spoke publicly on May 15th, the Shahabi Saqab system has been deployed at strategic locations across Iran since April 2026. Strategic locations. That is purposefully vague. But when you cross-reference that statement with open-source satellite imagery analyzed by the Soufan Center and confirmed by independent researchers, you start to see installations consistent with DW infrastructure at no fewer than 12 sites. 12 sites around nuclear facilities, military bases, and critical infrastructure nodes. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing you are not getting this level of technical analysis anywhere else. Now, let's about what actually happened on the night of May 14th, because the operational details reveal something Washington does not want to acknowledge. Announcement number 1, the attack profile. And this one matters more than anything else because it tells us who planned this operation and what their assumptions were. At approximately 10:47 p.m. time, Iranian air defense radar systems detected a swarm of unmanned aerial vehicles approaching from the west, originating from Iraqi airspace near the city of Sulaymaniyah. According to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force, the swarm consisted of at least 67 individual drones flying in a distributed formation at altitudes between 800 and 1,200 mits. The drones were identified as a mix of Israeli Harop loitering munitions and what Iranian sources describe as American-made reconnaissance variants, likely referring to Scan Eagle or Puma-class UAVs. The formation was designed to overwhelm traditional air defense systems. You send enough targets simultaneously, you force the defender to expend expensive interceptor missiles on relatively cheap drones. It is the same logic Ukraine has used against Russian air defenses. It is the same logic the Houthis have used against Saudi Patriot batteries. Send 67 drones at $20,000 to $50,000 each. Force your opponent to fire $3 million interceptor missiles. And even if they shoot down 90%, you have won the cost exchange battle. That was the operating theory, but that theory assumed Iran would respond with missiles. Iran did not respond with missiles. At 11:23 p.m., Iranian air defense commanders activated the Shahabi Sakab system at a site near the city of Natanz, home to one of Iran's key uranium enrichment facilities. According to Iranian media reports corroborated by video footage that has circulated on social media and analyzed by multiple independent experts, including those at the Midbury Institute of International Studies, the laser system engaged targets continuously for approximately 9 minutes. Witnesses on the ground reported seeing bright flashes in the night sky described as lightning without thunder. They reported drones catching fire mid-flight. They reported debris raining down across a 15-kilometer radius. By 11:32 p.m., the attack was over. Iranian officials claimed 67 drones destroyed, 0 missiles fired after 0 aircraft scrambled. The cost of operation: the electricity required to power the laser array for 9 minutes. At industrial rates in Iran, that is approximately $40 to $60 worth of electrical power. $40 to $60 to defeat an attack that likely cost the aggressor somewhere between $13 million and $34 million to launch. And that is before you factor in the intelligence, logistics, and operational coordination required to position 67 drones in Iraqi airspace without detection. Think carefully about what that cost ratio represents. When a defender can neutralize a mass drone attack for the cost of a tank of gasoline, the entire economics of aerial warfare shifts. That is not incremental. That is revolutionary. Received. That is announcement number 1. Announcement number 2, the geopolitical timing. This is the part the Pentagon has confirmed, and it is the part that should alarm anyone watching the broader regional chess game. On May 9th, just 5 days before this attack, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin met with Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant in Washington. According to a joint statement released after the meeting and reported by Reuters, the two discussed regional security cooperation and shared threats from Iran's destabilizing activities. That is diplomatic language. But when you read the statement from the Israeli side, reported by the Jerusalem Post, Gallant specifically referenced new capabilities that require urgent attention and windows of opportunity that may close. Now, what does windows of opportunity that may close mean in May 2026? It means capabilities that are not yet fully operational but are close. It means infrastructure that is vulnerable now, but may not be vulnerable in 6 months. And when you cross-reference that language with the timeline of Iran's Shahab-3 missile deployment, which Iranian officials say reached initial operational capability in April 2026, the logic becomes clear. If Israel and the United States believed Iran was close to fielding a game-changing air defense system, the window to strike was before that system became fully operational and fully distributed. The attack on May 14th was a test. It was not designed to destroy Natanz. If that were the goal, you would send cruise missiles. You would send manned aircraft with standoff weapons. You would send ballistic missiles. You do not send 67 small drones against one of the most heavily defended sites in Iran. Unless your goal is to probe the defense, unless your goal is to see what Iran has, how it responds, and whether the intelligence you have been receiving about their DEW capability is accurate. And Iran passed the test. Not only did they pass it, they did so in a way that was maximally embarrassing for the attacker. By publicizing the intercept, by releasing video footage, by allowing international media to report on the debris field, Iran sent a message. The message was not, "Do not attack us." The message was, "Your attack model is obsolete." Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes and where the implications for U.S. policy become impossible to ignore. Announcement number 3, and this one almost nobody in the mainstream media is connecting correctly. The United States has been pursuing directed energy weapons for decades. The Office of Naval Research, the Missile Defense Agency, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency all have programs. The U.S. has deployed laser systems on Navy destroyers. The Air Force has tested airborne lasers. But as of May 2026, the United States does not have a ground-based DEW system with confirmed combat intercepts against a mass drone attack. Israel's Iron Beam is still in development. Europe has prototype systems, but nothing fielded at scale. Iran, under the heaviest sanctions regime in modern history, with a defense budget a fraction of America's, has now demonstrated operational capability. How? The answer is not that Iran has better scientists than MIT or Caltech. The answer is focus and necessity. When you cannot buy Patriot missiles, when you cannot import F-35 fighters, when your entire defensive strategy is built around deterring a technologically superior adversary, you invest in asymmetric capabilities. You invest in drones, missiles, cyber warfare, and yes, directed energy weapons. According to an analysis published by the International Institute for Strategic Studies in London, Iran has been pouring resources into laser research since at least 2016, leveraging both domestic research institutions and almost certainly technical assistance from China and Russia. Chinese defense firms, including Ninko, have publicly showcased DW systems at Arms Expose. Russia has demonstrated similar capabilities. The technology is not magic, it is physics and engineering. And when you combine that technical foundation with a desperate strategic need, you accelerate development. What Iran demonstrated on May 14th was not a miracle. It was the predictable outcome of a country that spent a decade preparing for exactly this scenario, and that preparation is now paying dividends received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the headlines, because there are 2 stories playing out simultaneously, and the mainstream media is only covering one of them. The first story is the tactical one, the drones, the intercept, the press releases. The second story is the strategic one. It is about what this means for the balance of power, for military planning, for the viability of future strikes against Iran. Let me give you a scenario. You are a military planner in Tel Aviv or at U.S. Central Command in Tampa. For years, your strike packages against Iranian nuclear facilities have assumed a specific defensive environment. You have assumed Iranian air defenses built around Russian S-300 systems, which are capable but have known vulnerabilities. You have assumed Iranian fighters, mostly aging F-14 Tomcats and F-4 Phantoms, which pose minimal threat to modern stealth aircraft. You have assumed electronic warfare environments you can degrade, and you have assumed that if you saturate their defenses with enough missiles, enough drones, enough decoys, some percentage will get through. Now suddenly, that assumption is invalid. Suddenly, Iran has a system that can engage dozens of targets simultaneously without expending interceptors. A system that reloads instantly, limited only by power supply and cooling. A system that is far cheaper to operate than anything you can throw at it. Your entire strike calculus has changed. You cannot overwhelm it with volume because volume is exactly what it is designed to counter. You cannot exhaust its magazine because it does not have a magazine in the traditional sense. So what do? You either accept that striking Iran has become prohibitively difficult, or you develop new tactics. And developing new tactics takes time, resources, and testing time. Israel may not believe it has resources. The U.S. is increasingly reluctant to commit. Testing that risks further embarrassment if Iran counters those tactics too. Think carefully about what this represents. When a regional power demonstrates a capability that negates a superpower's preferred method of attack, that is not a minor adjustment. That is a shift in the strategic environment. And shifts in the strategic environment force difficult decisions. President Trump has been publicly ambiguous about military action against Iran. On May 16th, speaking at a rally in Ohio, he said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "Iran is playing a very dangerous game. They think they are smart. Maybe they are, but we will see. That is not a threat. That is uncertainty. That is a leader who does not have a clean military option and knows it." Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been leading a diplomatic push to build a coalition of pressure against Iran, enlisting Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt in a coordinated sanctions and isolation campaign. But here is the problem with that strategy. Saudi Arabia is currently negotiating a DANT with Iran brokered by China. The UAE restored diplomatic relations with Tehran in 2023 and has significant economic ties. Egypt is focused on Gaza and its own economic crisis. None of these countries want a wider war. None of them want to be the tip of the spear against an Iran that just demonstrated it can swat down drone swarms like flies. If you operate a defense contractor stock portfolio, if you own shares in Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, what happened on May 14th is a signal. It is a signal that the next generation of air defense is not missile-based. It is energy-based. And the country leading that transition, at least in terms of combat-proven systems, is not the United States. It is Iran. That should concern Pentagon planners. It should concern investors. And it should concern anyone who assumed American military technological dominance was permanent and unchanging. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it repeats, the outcome is the same. Think about the Peloponnesian War. Athens and Sparta, the two great powers of ancient Greece, went to war. The war lasted 27 years. Both sides were exhausted. Tens of thousands died. Cities were destroyed. And who won? Persia. Persia, which stayed out of the direct fighting, which played both sides, which waited for the Greeks to bleed themselves dry, and then stepped in to dictate terms. Athens and Sparta destroyed each other. Persia won without fighting. Now look at the current Middle East. The United States has spent 2 decades, trillions of dollars, thousands of lives fighting wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Israel has fought multiple wars with Hezbollah, Hamas, and conducted shadow operations across the region. Iran has spent billions supporting proxies, building missile arsenals, and developing asymmetric capabilities. And who is quietly winning? China. China, which has brokered peace deals between Iran and Saudi Arabia. China, which is building infrastructure across the region through the Belt and Road Initiative. China, which is buying Iranian oil at a discount, while the U.S. and Israel exhaust themselves in military confrontations. The United States is Athens, Israel is Sparta, Iran is the battlefield, and China is Persia. The parallel is not exact, but it is close enough to be instructive. When great powers focus on tactical victories, they often miss the strategic defeat. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths because there is no honest middle ground here. Path 1, de-escalation and acceptance. The United States and Israel accept that striking Iran's nuclear facilities has become significantly more difficult and costly. They shift to a containment strategy relying on diplomacy, sanctions, and regional alliances to limit Iran's influence. Iran, having demonstrated its defensive capability, refrains from further provocations and focuses on economic recovery and regional integration. This path requires both sides to back down from maximalist positions. It requires the U.S. to accept a nuclear threshold Iran. It requires Iran to accept continued sanctions and isolation. The probability of this path, in my assessment, is approximately 30%. Both sides have domestic political pressures that make compromise difficult. Path 2, escalation and adaptation. Israel and the U.S. conclude that Iran's DW capability, while impressive, is not invincible. They develop new tactics, possibly including saturation attacks with hypersonic missiles, electronic warfare to disable the laser targeting systems, or cyber operations to take the systems offline before a strike. Iran, anticipating this, accelerates deployment of additional systems and potentially conducts a preemptive strike against U.S. assets in the region to demonstrate resolve. This path leads to a wider conflict, possibly involving direct U.S.-Iran military exchanges. The probability of this path, in my assessment, is approximately 50%. It is the path of least political resistance for leaders in Washington and Tel Aviv who cannot be seen as weak. Path 3, proxy escalation and frozen conflict. Neither side strikes directly, but both sides increase support for proxies. Iran arms Hezbollah, the Houthis, and militias in Iraq and Syria with more sophisticated weapons. Israel conducts more aggressive covert operations. The U.S. provides intelligence and logistic support. The region enters a state of permanent low-intensity conflict, with periodic flare-ups, but no decisive engagement. This path is economically draining for all parties, but politically sustainable. The probability of this path is approximately 20%, mostly because it is the status quo and inertia is powerful. I think we are closer to path 2 than the headlines suggest. The reason is simple. Leaders in Washington and Jerusalem have invested too much political capital in the threat of military action to back down now without something to show for it. And leaders in Thrawn have invested too much in developing these defensive systems to let them sit unused as a deterrent. Both sides are locked in a commitment trap. Both sides believe the other will blink first. History suggests that when both sides believe that, neither blinks. They collide. But here's the caveat. I could be wrong. The intelligence I do not have access to might show vulnerabilities in Iran's DW systems that make them less formidable than they appear. The diplomatic back channels might be more productive than public statements suggest. The economic pressures on Iran might force compromise sooner than expected. I present these paths not as certainties but as frameworks for understanding the forces at play. Here are the questions I want you to take away. First, if directed energy weapons are now proven in combat, how quickly will other regional powers, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, acquire or develop similar systems? Second, if the cost-exchange ratio favors defense so heavily, does that make offensive military operations obsolete, or does it simply change the type of weapons used? Third, if Iran can develop a 150-kill laser system under sanctions, what does that say about the effectiveness of technology denial regimes? Tell me in the comments what you think happens next. Tell me if you believe Israel moves forward with strikes despite this new capability, or if they shift to a different strategy entirely. Tell me what you think the U.S. does if Path 2 unfolds and direct conflict becomes unavoidable. We will keep tracking every development in Iran, Israel, and across the broader Middle East. That is what this analysis does every single day. Subscribe now. Share this breakdown with everyone in your network who is trying to understand what just shifted in the balance of power in the Middle East. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, and we will see you in the next analysis.